Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cool Sports Guy. I'm Tom. Joining me today is Jarrett. Jarrett, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good. You're starting to freeze at the beginning, so I'm enjoying
So
that.
off to a great
Off to a
start.
fantastic
No.
start. All right. So we are back doing our show. We have a couple of topics to go through today, and we are already in December football, so I'm super excited about that. And we got a glimpse of that December football this last Monday in Buffalo when it was snowing and it was what, about 20 degrees or so, where where they had to keep most of the game on the ground. Felt old school. It was great. I loved everything about it. So that's the team we're gonna start off with first. Not Buffalo, the Patriots, because they are on a 7-game winning streak. So I do want to ask the question: do you think the Patriots are the best team in the NFL?
I don't know if I would go as far to say clear cut best team in the NFL. I think 100% you have to put them in the conversation. Uh, I think I'll put it this way. I think if someone does say they're the best team in the NFL, you can exactly call them wrong. And I thought the Bills were the best team in the NFL at the beginning of the season. I know we're like weeks in, and that's probably not the case. But then now they're the seventh. Patriots are number one in the AFC. But I will say the Patriots seem to be like the most like overall put together team. Like most teams, have holes here and there. So from my point of view, I don't think the Patriots have any like glaring holes on the entire team. I mean, Mac Jones he didn't even have to really play on Monday night. They he two for three for 19 yards, and they still beat what I think is maybe on paper the most talented team in the league. So even taking him out of the equation, they're just so well coached. Which I know I say every time I talk about the Patriots, we always talk about how well coached they are. They're just so well coached that they cover up all holes they have on the team. And going in like after the game had ended, I was thinking like I don't know if this makes me more confident in the Patriots confident, but I mean, they ran the ball, I think it was 37 times in a row and still beat the Bills, which I know the Bills are kind of at a rough patch right now. I think they're down to 7-5 and the seventh seed in the AFC. But Bills are still a good team, regardless of record. I know record matters, but it's not like the biggest deal when you talk about talented teams. Bills are still a very talented team, and whenever you can literally run the ball 37 times in a row, have no like threat to pass, and you still beat them, I think that's pretty impressive. And at least at this point right now, if I was to say the best team in the NFL right now, I would probably say the Patriots.
Yeah, it's hard to say it's not the Patriots for the reason you said. It's hard to kind of find a flaw. For the longest time, it was can Mac Jones push the ball down the field, but then the last few weeks we saw that was completely, anyone who said he can't, they were definitely wrong about that. Clearly, he can push the ball down the field. They're blowing their opponents out. This is the closest game I've seen for the Patriots in a few weeks, and Mac Jones threw the ball 3 times, like you said, and they just kept running the ball. I do think Buffalo did outplay Patriots. They just couldn't finish. There were a couple of key drop passes, including a touchdown pass. There was that missed field goal that, if they would have, in the fourth quarter, Buffalo kicked a field goal, missed the field goal. If that field goal was made, Buffalo still got the ball back not too long right after, and they were back in field goal range, but they had to try and convert a 4th and 12 this time, which they couldn't do. But if that field goal was made, you just kick another one because they were well within range, even with the wind. Um, Another thing that did not make any sense to me whatsoever. I know it's first quarter. I know it's too early to call this, but something that blew my mind was Patriots scored a touchdown and went for a 2-point conversion. I did not understand when Buffalo scored a touchdown and it was 8-6, and they elected to kick the field goal rather than try to tie the game up. which, in my opinion, came back to bite them in the butt later because later on in the fourth quarter, they're trailing by 4. And at this point, they need to try to get a touchdown rather than try to get a field goal, which is another thing I didn't understand. So early in the game, I did not understand why they didn't try to get that tie. But either way, nonetheless, Patriots are on a 7-game winning streak. They are leading the AFC currently, and right now it is very hard to say that they're not the best team in football because there really isn't much to say against it. Even looking at their schedule going forward, they got the Colts and they have the Bills coming up again at home. Besides that, they have Jacksonville and Dolphins. If they can win at least, if they can beat the Bills again, I think they're going to be number one because they will for sure beat Jacksonville. Ravens, Chiefs, Titans, all of them currently do tie for first place, technically, from a record standpoint. And from a record standpoint, I think Titans, who played the Jacksonville Jaguars, Steelers, 49ers, Dolphins, and Texans, have a better shot at keeping a win streak going and being the number one seed. But I would not put the Titans to beat the Patriots in the playoffs if they played right now. So yes, I think the Patriots are the best team in the NFL right now.
This is kind of backtracking a little bit, but about the 2-point conversion that you brought up.
Yeah,
I feel like obviously there is such thing as being like too aggressive, but I feel like coaches still haven't learned the lesson that if you play too conservative, it never goes well. Because think about like any big game ever, whenever there's a situation where you can either be the aggressive team or the conservative team. Teams that choose to be conservative always lose, like no matter what. It always happens, and yet teams still play conservative.
Yeah.
Last year in the NFC Championship game, the Packers, you have the MVP, best quarterback in the league at the time. Like down the field, you can score a touchdown. I mean, the Buccaneers had a good defense, yes, but they could have went for the touchdown, but instead decided, and they kick the field goal, and then they give the ball back to Tom Brady. I mean, I'm happy it happened. I hate Green Bay, but like, be aggressive. Like, I just feel like putting like the game in your own hands is so much better to do than to just play conservative all the time. I know that was early on in the game, so it's not like the biggest deal, but at the same time, especially if the other team is being aggressive and going for 2, you have to keep up with them.
Yeah, and that is a whole another level of that play call was something I will never understand. But for the Green Bay to kick a field goal, 4th and goal when you're down 8, 2 minutes left, like I don't understand what your thought process there was. But that's a subject for a whole another day. Most of the teams we're going to talk about today is the NFC, but before we actually jump from AFC to the NFC, I do want to talk about coaches on the hot seat because that pertains to both NFC and AFC. So, who do you think are the top 3 coaches or top 2 coaches are on the hot seat this year?
I know you said that it pertains to both AFC and NFC.
Yeah.
I don't really think there's many AFC coaches on the hot seat. You could say Vic Fangio. I don't think he should be on the hot seat. He's done like before this year. It wasn't like that great. I would say yes on the hot seat. I feel like while they're not like a fantastic team this year, they're a very solid team that could definitely make an upset in the playoffs if they get to that point because that defense is just so good. And then Teddy Bridgewater, I know he's not a flashy quarterback, but he's very efficient, and that's the kind of quarterback they need with a good defense. But I wouldn't consider Fangio. And then the only other one that I like hear people talking about is Urban Meyer, which I think Urban Meyer was a bad hire in the first place. But from the Jaguars' point of view, I wouldn't put him on the hot seat. I think he's overperformed with the talent level in the roster. So if I was to do a top 3, they're all NFC coaches. Number 3, I would probably go with Joe Judge, the head coach of the Giants. I'm not saying he's the worst coach in the league, but like I feel like I mean you have the Giants to be the playoff team from that division, so like obviously on paper they have some talent and they have severely underperformed. I know like quarterback is a big part of a team, and they have Daniel Jones, who is not a superstar, or maybe even in some eyes isn't even a quality star. But they like I feel like they're a lot better of a team on paper, even just around the quarterback, for them to do better. That they should be doing better than they are. For number 2, I'm going to go to the NFC North, and I'm going to go with Mike Zimmer of the Vikings.
You stole one of mine, I'll tell you that.
I feel like, I mean, my number 1 is the most obvious, which I'll get to, but I think Mike Zimmer is a very obvious coach on the hot seat. I've seen the Vikings play a lot. They're a division rival. Listen, with Mike Zimmer as head coach, they had a losing record against the Bears with Trubisky. You know the whole Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears comment? Trubisky borderline owned the Vikings. I don't think the only time he ever lost to the Vikings was like his first career start. That is it. But like they have talent. They've had a good defense. I know Kirk Cousins isn't. He's not. I wouldn't consider him an elite quarterback, but he's a severely underrated quarterback who's definitely good enough to win games. You have one of the best running backs in football, one of the best receiving corps, and a pretty solid offensive line. Their defense is pretty good. Yet they just constantly lose games every year and are borderline a playoff team. Given, I won't be happy if the Vikings stick with Zimmer because that'll keep them at the just the dead average mark of the NFL, which I'm happy with. But they have too much talent on that roster. I feel like the players are kind of starting to give up and they're not playing as hard. Which you can see from last week, which we'll get into later. I think that he was a lot better when he first came into a head coach position, which always seems to be the case no matter what. The best point of most head coaches careers is their start on whatever team it is, which will lead me to my number 1 pick, which is also in the NFC North. My dear Chicago Bears, Matt Nagy, the bane of my existence. The amount of words I could say talking about how Nagy should not have the job is insane. How this man has a job is out of no idea. I feel like people's argument is at least the players play hard for him. We lost to the Ravens with Tyler Huntley because no one cares anymore. None of the Bears players seem to even care because there's no hope. Nagy is supposed to be an offensive mastermind. That's what he was his coming into the Bears organization. He was supposed to be the Andy Reid coaching tree. He was supposed to be a genius on the offensive play calls. He lost his second or third year because he was just so bad. Even his first year, people were like, "Oh, he's a great coach. You want coach of the." We went 12-4 because of our defense. We had the 23rd, I think, ranked offense, which isn't even that's still really bad. Our defense carried us. Vic Fangio to the year, if anything. That Nagy, he doesn't do what he's supposed to, as in play calling. He's obviously can't lead a team very well because when he does play calling, he's just stubborn. And I think that without a doubt, he has the hottest seat in the league. You can't even consider it a hot seat anymore. His seat is so hot, it's basically evaporated at this point. He's gone. If he's not gone after this year, I 100% guarantee that Bears will riot because he needs to be gone.
So yeah, I was Mike Zimmer was gonna be one of mine, so I'll give you a different one since he gave me that. I cannot give you a different one than Matt Nagy because Matt Nagy is my number 1 without a doubt. He's on a hot seat so much that his seat's already melted out. At this point he's just there. He should have been just falling on the ground. And for the reasons you said, I'm not even going to elaborate on that. Whether you want to say the 12-4 was his skills, not his skills, Trubisky was skillful, or Matt Nagy made Trubisky look good. At the end of the day, Matt Nagy is on too hot of a seat that I don't think he's going to be at least a Bears head coach next year. One of the ones that I want to throw in there is Kyle Shanahan. I think I kept trying to back up Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers for the longest time. I kept saying they have too many injuries, blah, blah. But the too many injuries for so long means that your top end of the team is very heavy and very good, but that means none of your backups are good enough to win games because he's on pace right now to have 4 losing seasons in 5 of the years that he's been a head coach with the 49ers, at least the last 5 years. So I think he's on a pretty hot streak. Um, Biggest question about 49ers making the playoffs this year, at least in my opinion, was, well, can Jimmy Garoppolo stay healthy? And for the most part, he's staying healthy. And for some reason, they still can't find ways to win games. They've shown spurts here and there saying, "Oh yeah, we're good enough," but I mean, it looks like they might be on the outside looking in by the time the season's over. So that's one for me, or that's number 3 for me. Number 2 for me is actually Pete Carroll. I don't necessarily think Pete Carroll will get fired, but at the same time, I do think his seat might be starting to get a little warm. And the biggest issue right now is if Russell Wilson stays unhappy and they end up trading Russell Wilson, if they don't perform very well next year, also on top of this, there's a good chance, considering how the last 2 years went and how this year right now is going, if next year doesn't go so well, Pete Carroll he might make it to next year, but I don't think he'll make it out of next year. So those are my 3. And I do agree with you on the Mike Zimmer one. He reminds me of Bill O'Brien in the NFC. That's how the Texans were. They would play good enough and lose the randomest games, win the randomest games, make the playoffs, and then just lose. So those are mine.
I think whenever you talk about coaches on the hot seat, I think the number one factor is what we kind of like touched on is how well the coaches can utilize talent, which, like you said, Mike Shanahan, the 49ers are a very talented team. I will give them that.
Yeah.
But like you said, all teams have injuries. Look at the Ravens, how well coached they are. John Harbaugh this team has been obliterated with injuries, and they're still in competition to win the division, and they're still a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
With the 49ers, I know they still have injuries. Injuries haven't even been I would say all that bad this year. I think if they make the playoffs, then maybe he doesn't get fired. That's just my opinion on it. But with Pete Carroll, I feel like they don't utilize talent well. Matt Nagy, his whole thing, I feel like he is the most stubborn head ever seen, to the point where good coaches like Bill Belichick, for example, he doesn't have the most talented roster on paper or anything, but he just the play calls
make it work.
and how the team operates, it utilizes the players' strengths to make the team kind of glue together. I feel like that's the exact opposite of what Matt Nagy does. Nagy is he thinks that it's his way or the highway, and he will not go off of what his play calls are. Because I know Mitch Trubisky, I talked about this a lot. He's not the most talented quarterback, but he was definitely, I'd say he's an average quarterback in the league. And the same thing with Justin Fields. What are their strengths? Are rolling out of the pocket and throwing on the run and using their speed. He didn't let really either of them do that. I know that Justin Fields is a great pocket passer, but at least bootlegs, screenplays, that kind of thing would work well with those type of quarterbacks, and he just does not do that whatsoever. And even with Nagy, some people, he doesn't players that fit his offense, even though it's not really supposed to be how it works. It's supposed to be you make the players, you make an offense to fit your players. Well, even though he's okay, well, Mitch Trubisky can my offense, a quarterback who can, Nichols can do it. They get Nick Foles. Nichols is the worst quarterback I've ever seen put in the Bears jersey on. Then he's okay, well, they can't do that. Andy Dalton, he's a good veteran, solid. He can run my offense, which I at least like and respect Andy Dalton. He can't run the offense either because there basically is no offense. And that's, I think, what makes a good coach is being able to make their team play calls talent and just utilize the players' strengths as opposed to trying to make the players fit your play's strengths, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, and that's not just with sports. That's in general. If anything, you ask any successful person that does a business, you can ask them, and they'll give you the same answers. Unless you're willing to learn what your weaknesses are and learn what your strengths are, and accept what those weaknesses are, and not be stubborn about it, and work to your strengths and try to fix your weaknesses. That's where success comes in, and I think that's what Bill Belichick does the best. He understands his players' weaknesses, he understands his players' strengths, and he understands who needs to be put where to do what. And then he also determines what the other opposing team's weaknesses are, and definitely make sure to cash in on that. And I think Matt Nagy, like you said, might be a little too stubborn to accept those and do those. But nonetheless, he's probably going to be gone soon. We're going to talk about another coach who I don't believe is on the hot seat, but is probably in the worst or coaching the worst team in NFL right now, or arguably the worst team in NFL right now, and that's the Lions. Because the Lions just got their first win this season. What's your thoughts on that? By the way, before you
I think
start, real quick, did you know this is the very first win for Jared Goff without Sean McVay?
Yeah, he was like 0-4 with Jeff Fisher. I think 0-4 with like the intern head coach that year after Fisher got fired. Won however many games with McVay, and then was like 10-1 up until this point with Dan Campbell. I think we started off Lions, round of applause. They finally get a win. I mean, I'm a Bears fan, so I know what it feels like to lose constantly. I've never seen them lose 10 games in a row, so like it must feel real nice, especially to beat a division rival. It would have been way better if it was like beating like Green Bay or something, but beating a division rival like the Vikings must feel amazing. Also with the whole Jared Goff thing, I've told you this, I'm a lot higher on Jared Goff than most people. I feel like if you count his losses, not like him not being able to win without Sean McVay, he had Jeff Fisher, who was not a great coach, and he was like the number 1 overall pick for a reason. They were like a bad team. I know they traded up for the number 1 pick, but they were still a bad team. And then he won the games with McVay because like McVay is a great coach, built the team around him. Then he went to the Lions, and the Lions we're talking about the depleted talent on that roster, but I think Jared Goff looks really impressive. He actually won NFC Offensive Player of the Week for that game.
He played really well.
That he had I think 3 touchdowns, which is, I mean, the Vikings defense isn't fantastic, but like he played well, and I think the Lions should. It must feel nice because technically the Lions are out of the playoff hunt right now. It's still possible. So maybe they make a late season playoff push. Who knows? Get that win under their belt, and they win out the rest of the year.
Okay. So statistically, yes, the Lions can still make the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs, Jared. I'm sorry. Even if they win out every game from here on out, I guarantee you the 3 teams that has a lead right now, they will win more games, and the Lions will not make the playoffs. But I do have to give the Lions a lot of credit. I think that win was well deserved. 1, they played fantastic yesterday, or I'm sorry, on Sunday, and 2, throughout the season, there's so many games where it was way too close that I felt like the Lions deserved the win, but then they ended up losing the game. So congratulations to Dan Campbell on his first win. Finally got a good bite of the kneecap, it looks like, and hope I'm rooting for the guy. I hope he continues to do good and win. I've never been the biggest Jared Goff fan, so I don't have much faith in him. But again, credit given where credit's due. I'll give him credit for yesterday. Again, Sunday. I don't know. I keep saying yesterday. I'll give him credit for Sunday, especially the very last drive. You need a touchdown. You don't have much time left, and you're just driving down. It was a 4th down, and it was 4 seconds left on the clock when they took that snap. And I mean, he threw where the ball needed to go, caught the ball, and it was just That's just great. It was a good job. Good job all around. So that does take me to my next point. Their opposing team that they faced, that they beat, it was Minnesota. Did you think the Lions maybe took the chance away from Minnesota to make the playoffs this year?
I think by technicalities, I think Minnesota obviously still has a shot at the playoffs. Do I think Minnesota will make the playoffs? I'm honestly going to go with no. I think they still could compete. I will say they have to play the Bears twice. I know the Bears are not a great team. I think they're basically on par with Vikings. But like I said, the Mitch Trubisky I think was like 5-1 in his career or something like that against the Vikings. I think Justin Fields is a much better quarterback, and he has. This team is a lot better than some of the teams that we played with that Mitch Trubisky played under. But I think that when it comes to the NFC, there's just so many teams that are in the playoff hunt that just based on like percentages of any of them making it, it's very low. I would probably go with, like obviously you have the Cardinals, the Packers, the Buccaneers, and the team I'm missing, and the Rams. Like there's all the
Cowboys.
Top teams. Cowboys. That's I don't know how I blank on the Cowboys. So you have like the 4 division winners, and then you have like the Rams definitely going to make it. That leaves 2 spots. There's still teams I think are going to make it. There's the 49ers. There's Washington. I hate to say it, but the Falcons. If you want to throw the Bears in there and the Vikings, like there's not many spots left for them to take to make the playoffs. There's a lot of teams that can fit those playoff spots.
We're talking about the Vikings, and you just said the and the Vikings.
Did I say that?
You're right. They do stand in their way. You're very accurate on that.
There's just so many teams that could fit into the playoff spot. So like I think that they could for sure, but think they will? Probably not. I'd probably say it's like the 4 division winners I mentioned, and then the last 3 would probably be like the Rams. I want to say Washington and the 49ers. Those would be my picks probably at this point.
Yeah.
I just don't think the Vikings are good enough, especially given they just lost to Detroit, which is killer for a schedule because that's supposed to be a guaranteed win.
I don't think they're going to make it. Do they have a better chance than Lions than making the playoffs? Yes, they do. Do I think they will make it? I don't think so. There's currently 4 teams ahead of them in the wild card hunt, or not hunt, but there's 3 teams in right now in wild card spot, and there's another team, and which is I believe the Eagles in the hunt, and behind them is
I even forgot to mention the
Vikings. And then with the Vikings, who's currently at 5-7, there are 4 other teams that are actually tied at 5-7 with the Vikings as well. So do I think they're gonna make it? No, I don't think they're gonna make it. And Washington's on a hot streak. They look like they're gonna do it. Rams, they have been on the not the best, winning record recently, but and they're in a wild card spot only because the Cardinals are so good. The Rams are still at 7 wins. They're not that far behind other teams, and so they're for sure gonna make it. I think Washington is gonna make it. I would pick Eagles to make it before Minnesota, and I would even pick the Saints to make it before Minnesota at this point. So
yeah, it'd be nice to see the Eagles in the playoffs. Get Minshew Mania in the playoffs. Hypothetically, if Hurts doesn't play, Gardner Minshew in the playoffs seems like a fun game to watch.
It will be. I like that guy. I like his attitude, at least. I don't know if I pick him as a quarterback, but I like his attitude.
Honestly, super efficient. He seems like it could be like a Teddy Bridgewater 2.0. Does not turn over the ball much.
He
very efficient.
Bridge, yeah.
High QBR every game. I don't know. I think he's underrated, but
that's for like a baby Mac Jones. Day. Yeah, yeah. We'll have a Gardner Minshew show, just him. So talking about wild card spots and playoff spots, we're gonna move on to slightly better teams in the NFC, and that's the Cowboys and the Washington football team. The Washington football's been in a hot streak. Cowboys have not been looking the greatest recently. Washington's currently 2 games behind Cowboys, and in the next 3 weeks, they play each other twice. Do you think Cowboys can possibly hold on and beat Washington and put that Washington's playoff dreams to bed, or do you think Washington might actually make it and make the Cowboys wonder how good the team really is?
So the Washington being on this hot streak makes me feel a lot better for them being my playoff pick or my division winner pick for that division, unlike the Giants. Do I think they're better than the Cowboys? Not really. I think the Cowboys are a better team. I think Washington can sneak out the home game of those matchups. I think the Cowboys are still going to win the division. I think Washington's on a hot streak, yes, but they've also been knocked with some injuries. I know they started this hot streak like after Chase Young got hurt, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But then Logan Thomas, their tight end, who I think is severely underrated, got it. He tore his ACL on a controversial play against the Raiders, which isn't ideal. I mean, I think Washington could definitely still sneak into a playoff spot, and maybe we'll have a matchup with them in Tampa Bay in the wild card round. Who knows? But I think the Cowboys are the better team, and I think they're definitely going to win the division.
Yeah. If anything, I'll give Washington 1-1 rather than Washington being able to win both. But at this point in the season, when Cowboys are already 2 games ahead, that 1-1 will help that'll just even it out, take 2 more games out of the way, which means Cowboys still will be 2 games ahead of Washington. And I think that itself will just put the Cowboys in playoff. But that being said, I do think Washington right now, and I was the biggest critic on them. I kept saying no for the 4 straight weeks, and I lost all 4 weeks straight when I picked against them. So I have to give them credit. They are on a hot streak. I think they'll continue to do great. I think they will make the wild card round. Really, really depends on who they play in that wild card round. If I would pick them to move forward, you mentioned maybe playing the Bucks. They went toe to toe with the Bucks last year, and they clearly beat the Bucks this year. In Washington, the only difference is right now, if you go into playoffs, I think the Bucks with Brady would be a little different in playoffs, and I do think they would be playing in Tampa Bay. And so far, we'll see what the Bills does this week, but so far Tampa Bay has not been beaten at home, so we'll see how that goes. So moving on, talking about Tampa Bay, we're going to talk some Tom Brady. Tom Brady currently leads the NFL for the season with, I believe, 34 touchdowns, and Matt Stafford is the second with 30. Bucks are, they're on a hot streak recently. The Colts comeback win, and followed by last week. I mean, last week was Falcons, but I do think it gives them a little bit of momentum. Put them in a good spot and ensures their playoff. They're officially going to be making the playoffs. So what's your thoughts? Do you think the Bucks will keep going? Do you think the Bucks will continue to do good? And what do you think the Rams are going to do?
I think for sure the Bucks have a relatively easy schedule to end off the season. Depending on how good of a team you think Carolina is, I think Carolina's at best. I think the Bucks are a much better team. So I think the Bucks have an easy schedule. But honestly, the Rams have a relatively easy schedule as well. They have they have the 49ers, which is division. It'll be a little tough. The Cardinals is the toughest one. Obviously, they play them this week. The Ravens, I think, will be a good matchup. I still probably pick the Rams in that one, but then they play like the Vikings. And I think I'm missing someone, but I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. So both of them have relatively easy schedules, but I will say, with the case in the Rams and the Bucks, I am way more confident in Tom Brady than I am with Matthew Stafford at this point. Because we've been talking about how the Rams are on the decline currently, which I know they blew out Jacksonville last week. Everyone blows out Jacksonville. I hate to put all of the blame on one player, but honestly, I would, if I was to anyone, blame Matthew Stafford. He's played insanely bad the last few weeks. Like when all of their losses,
Robert Woods.
I think he's thrown I know Rob. I know it's a little bit of a joke, but Robert Woods is a big part of the offense. I know.
No, that's what, I'm not joking. It's since that incident is when they're just. I mean, it was a train wreck after that.
I like Odell Beckham, but I think Robert Woods at this point is a better receiver than that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Was definitely a not a confidence loss, but team morale loss. And I think that Matthew Stafford, I think it's 4 weeks in a row that he's thrown a pick six, which against Tennessee, he threw 2 picks within the first minute of the game. It was against the 49ers. He threw 2 or 3 picks. He has played insanely bad. I think only the episode, I want to say it was week 4 or 5, and I had picked Matthew Stafford as my MVP pick. It's not looking too hot right now. He started off so well, and I know he's injured. I hate talking crap on Matthew Stafford because he was stuck in Detroit for the first part of his career, and he got no hope in Detroit. Even not including the football team, the city of Detroit, kind of a crap hole. It just sucks. But finally gets to go to LA, and he has a talented team around him for the first time in his career, and he is doing so well. But I know Matthew Stafford is probably the toughest quarterback in the league and will play through injuries. But at this point, whenever he's playing so bad and all of the blame is on the injuries, is it even a good idea to tough it out and play in the games? Because it's not looking like it whenever it's making the team lose with all the interceptions he throws. They have a great defense. They have the best defensive player on the planet. They have the best cornerback on the planet. They have, Von Miller's still a solid pass rusher. Leonard Floyd's a solid pass rusher. They have a good defense all around. Their offense still has weapons that other teams would dream of having. McVay is still a great play caller. I honestly, Matthew Stafford is the big problem with that team right now, which now it's not looking so hot to trade 2 first-round picks and Jared Goff for Matt Stafford. But I think he will turn it around. I think he just honestly sit out a week or 2, heal up, and then get back to it, because the way he's playing right now, it's not helping anyone, and it is making the Rams a much worse team than they actually are.
Yeah, I think, starting with the Rams, I do think Robert Woods is a big loss because he played inside the numbers a lot, and Matt Stafford put the ball there a lot, and OBJ plays outside the numbers, and I think that's the biggest difference here. I do think they're on a decline, but do I think they're going to end up making the playoffs and maybe even win a couple of games in the playoffs? They can if they get their crap together. And I think Sean McVay, he's a good enough coach to where he could put plays together for Matthew Stafford just like he did for Jared Goff. If he can make Jared Goff win games, he can make Matthew Stafford win games. So he's maybe turned a little lazy. Exactly. And he probably got a tad lazy thinking, oh man, I just went from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. I can relax now. Maybe not. Get back on it, draw it up, draw up some good plays, and you can potentially start winning again. As far as the Buccaneers go, yeah, you're right. I mean, they have besides, I think the toughest game they have now left is Buffalo, because besides that, I believe they play Saints. They play Carolina twice, right? I believe so. I could be wrong. But so, yeah, and considering where the Falcons, and so here's the crazy take for you real quick. Falcons, Saints, Carolina, all at 5 wins. Chances of catching up to Buccaneers is extremely low. Bucs are probably going to go away with the division, but chances of Buccaneers having number 1 seed is also extremely low because Cardinals are playing really, really well. They're already a game ahead, and Green Bay is already, even though their records are tied, Green Bay is a game ahead, and Green Bay will probably end up winning out the rest of the season too. Crazy idea for the Bucs. Lose against the Bills on purpose. Give Bills a chance to take back the lead in AFC North. Put Belichick as a wild card spot. Because if the Bucs are smart and they're expecting to go back to the Super Bowl, who would you rather face?
Did Kansas you know City? Betting odds?
What was that?
Okay, go ahead. No, you go first.
No,
I'll add it to the end.
no, I'm just
I was
saying,
gonna
like, who
play
would
either
Bucks
Kansas
play?
City
Who
or I'd say honestly anyone but the Patriots. Kansas City maybe they can beat up on that offensive line, but uh, I think it was like according to betting odds, the most the most predicted matchup in the Super Bowl right now is
yeah,
Bucks Patriots,
yeah,
which
it
that
is,
would be hypothetically if Tom Brady were this is his last year, which I don't think it is because if he's going to go out there and win MVP, I don't think you can for an MVP year. But hypothetically, if his last game was like a Super Bowl win against New England, that would be the greatest thing like in sports
it,
history.
look, it would be, and I hope that Super Bowl happens, and I would love to watch that Super Bowl but from a strategic standpoint, if I were the Bucks, I would think let's not let New England get to the Super Bowl. That's that'll be that'll be my thought process. But just throwing that out there. Um, we're almost wrapping up for the show here. I do want to talk about something that is not NFL related, but it is football related. You actually brought this up, and I do want to. I'll let you go first on this. Kenny Pickett for Pittsburgh. They were playing against um, Wake Forest, right? You're frozen again.
I want to say yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Either
That's
way,
nice.
I think everybody
Uh,
saw it. It was the fake slide that he did that led them to a touchdown. Obviously, the defense thought that he's sliding down, didn't try to tackle him, and then he just kept running. What do you think that's bad for the sport?
yeah, I know this isn't like an NFL topic, but like Tom said, I did bring it up. Uh, I think it's horrible for the sport because I saw it on Instagram first because I'm not the biggest college football fan. If I'm not going to watch Pittsburgh versus Wake Forest on a Saturday, but I did see the play. I did see the play quite often. It was all over Instagram and Twitter and everything. And in the comments, all the comments were like, "Oh, that play's sick. Like it's so cool. Players should do that more." I think honestly that would just completely kill the sport if you allow for quarterbacks to do that because that's like an insane advantage for the offense already has so many advantages. And for someone like me, I like watching good defense. I know people like a few years ago in the Rams Patriots Super Bowl, people like that's the worst Super Bowl ever. That was a good game because the defenses were just so good. I think defense is fun to watch, but whenever you have an advantage to where like the quarterback can fake slide, because what do you do in that situation? Because do you try and hit them? Because if they do actually go down, you get a 15-yard penalty, and especially in college, they have like the targeting rule. You get ejected. If you don't tackle them, then they stand up and like they fake the sliding and get a touchdown. Like that's a lose-lose. And I think if the sport allows quarterbacks to do that, then they can't have the rule to where if they slide, you're not allowed to hit them. Which sounds
Yeah,
dumb, I know, but just trying to add to the fact that they should not be able to do a fake slide like that. If you're letting your like giving up on the play like that, you should not be able to fake it and just get back up and go. I'm just super against it. I'm very strongly against it, but that's just my opinion, though.
yeah, I think I strongly agree with you there. Look at the right now compared to what the league was about 10, 15 years ago to right now it's vastly changed in the favor of the offense and especially the quarterback because they're trying to every sport or every I'm sorry not sport every league is doing their best to protect the quarterback and the whole reason that slide is put in place to where they can get hit if they're sliding is to protect the quarterback. But if you're going to say, oh, I'm going to fake slide, so a defensive player is thinking, oh, you know what, I can't hit this person, he's starting to slide. If I touch him, like you said, in college, they could even be they could be ejected for targeting. In the NFL, you can get suspended, you can get fined depending on the hit. All of these things are already put in place. But then on top of that, if you're just gonna fake it, like at what point is a defense thinking, okay, I'm okay to tackle this person, I'm not okay to tackle this person. I can hit him, not hit him, touch him, not touch him. I think it's starting to get a little ridiculous. I understand all the safety aspect of it, and I understand why these rules are put in place, and I understand that this helps the offense, but I'm still kind of for the rules to be put in place because at the end of the day, I don't want any of the players to get injured. But at the end of the day, they have to realize the reasoning behind the sport, and you can't just, that's I don't think that should be allowed if you're going to start to slide, because that to me was clear and obvious that it wasn't a slip. He was obviously fake sliding, and that, in my opinion, should 100% be illegal, because now every quarterback's going to start doing that, and defensive backs, defensive ends will have zero idea if they're able to tackle this person or not, and that's just going to lead to more.
Are we going to say it's going to lead to more like injuries because the defensive players aren't going to let up? Because that's exactly what happened. Is it's going to completely void all of the rules that lead to player safety. Because the defender, even the aspects, they can just like react quicker to what's happening. Well, they have to, like, if you even like run full speed and then like push the quarterback down when they're sliding, that's going to be a penalty. You cannot touch them when they're sliding. So you're going to have to slow down to basically a complete stop, and then you literally won't be able to stop someone who's running full speed. It's going to lead to players just going ahead and hitting them anyways, which completely avoids the whole health thing in the first place. So I think they need to do something about not allowing that to be illegal. I think if a player starts to slide, call the play dead, and that is it. I think that's how they should go about it. Will they do that? Maybe not, because my thing with like whether it's the NFL or college football, they know fans like offense, touchdowns bring in more money, that type of thing. So I think they may let it slide. I just super against it.
Yeah. Fair enough. So I think that's all the topics we have. Sorry, you kept freezing there. I wasn't sure if you were done or not. But yeah, I think that's all the topics we have. I know it was a short week for us, but we'll be joining again on Friday to start talking about picks again. As we're getting ready for the playoffs here, and super excited and looking forward to that. And I'm also super happy about December football. But until then, unless you have anything else to add, Jarrett, do you have anything?
I kind of want to add something just real quick about the whole Matt Nagy situation. I know I talk about how the Bears need to fire Nagy like immediately. I have decided I think we should wait till the end of the season, because hear me out. If we do fire Nagy right now, we would have an intern head coach, yes, who has to like implement like their own version of the offense. So you would make Justin Fields learn not one awful offense, but two awful offenses before he starts his second year in the league. So I think they should wait until like the very end of the season. But I do think Matt Nagy should be fired. I'm just going to put it that way.
He will be fired, and yeah, I do think they're going to wait till the end of the season. At this point, there's no point of firing him with 3 weeks left, or 5 weeks left. So, yeah, don't worry, he'll be gone. Hopefully, you'll get a good coach.
Well, the thing with like the Nagy thing, I'm not gonna rant about this too much. I feel like with the owners, which are the Caskies, they care a lot about the income of the team. It's like their number one priority, which Bears fans complain about all the time. I know we played the Cardinals and it was in rain, so it's against a team way better than us and not ideal like conditions. But if watching the game, the stand borderline like empty like the entire game. No one wants to watch this team anymore because Nagy is so atrocious at coaching. And that's going to make them realize, hey, yeah, we're not making any. I think there's a 0% chance Nagy comes back next year. And if he does, they will lose so much money. And Bears fans will literally burn down Soldier Field because they will be so outraged.
Yeah. I think there will be riots in Chicago, and you don't need any more crime or riots in Chicago. So hopefully he'll be gone. But until then, we're going to take off, and we'll see you guys on Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Check out our website at coolsportsguide.com. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram also. Jarrett, you have a wonderful night, and I'll see you on Friday.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
You too.